All right, today we're going to fire up the machinery of the mind. We're diving into one of the most revolutionary ideas of the 20th century, Sigmund Freud's theory on how your brain, secretly, and very strangely, builds a dream from the ground up.
I mean, we've all been there, right? You wake up from a dream that was just bizarre. It was vivid, chaotic, maybe it made absolutely no sense. And you just have to wonder, where on earth did that come from? What could it possibly mean? Well, Freud believed there was a very specific method to all that madness.
So here's Freud's big idea. Every single dream has two faces. On the surface, you've got the manifest dream. That's the weird movie you remember when you wake up. But hidden deep beneath that, kind of like an iceberg, is the latent dream. And that is the real source material, the hidden, raw, and often uncomfortable thoughts and wishes your mind is actually wrestling with.
So how do you get from those deep, hidden thoughts to the weird movie on the surface? Well, there's a bridge, and Freud called it the dream work. You can think of it as your mind's internal disguise artist. It's this incredible engine that takes the raw, maybe even explosive material of the latent dream and transforms it into the coded, symbolic, and strange manifest dream. It's part translator and part censor. So in this explainer, we're going to break down exactly how that engine works. We'll start with those two faces of the dream, then we'll dive into three key mechanisms: condensation, displacement, and its really unique visual language. After that, we'll look at the final polish the mind puts on everything and what it all means for, actually decoding our own unconscious. So what's the first major tool the dream work uses? It's a process called condensation, and it is all about ruthless, incredible compression.
To put it simply, the dream you remember is always a radically shortened version of what it's really about. The dream work takes these huge networks of thoughts, memories, and feelings and just packs them down, squishing them into a few potent, highly charged images or moments.
And how it does this is just fascinating. First, the dream work is ruthless. It just leaves out huge chunks of information. Gone. Second, it might only let one tiny little piece of a major idea sneak through. And third, and this is the really creative part, it fuses multiple different ideas that share some tiny connection into one single brand new image.
Freud had this brilliant analogy for this. Think of a composite photograph, where you take pictures of several different people and then layer them one on top of the other. The result isn't any single one of those people, right? It's a new, hybrid face that has features of all of them. That is exactly how condensation works. A single person in your dream might actually be your boss, your dad, and a childhood friend all rolled into one.
All right, the second mechanism is where the dream's censorship really kicks into high gear. This one's called displacement, and it is truly the art of misdirection.
Okay, so if condensation is about squishing information down, displacement is all about disguising what's important. The dream work takes all the intense emotion that's attached to a really significant, maybe even scary idea, and it just moves it. It transfers it onto something that seems totally random and unimportant in the dream. So the dream seems to be about one thing, but all of its emotional power is secretly coming from somewhere else entirely. Freud used this fantastic little story to explain this. So imagine a village where a blacksmith commits a crime so bad he's sentenced to death. The court agrees he has to be punished, but then they realize, wait, he's the only blacksmith. The town can't function without him. But they notice there are 3 tailors in town. So to make sure the law is fulfilled, they just hang one of the tailors instead. That's displacement in a nutshell. The punishment is real, but it's been moved from the guilty, important person onto someone innocent and, well, less essential.
Okay, on to the third mechanism. And this is where the dream work gets really creative. It has to solve a massive problem. How do you turn abstract thoughts into a purely visual movie? How do you think, but only using pictures?
I mean, think about it. A dream can't just use words like because, or if, or instead. It can't have a philosophical debate. It has to take these big abstract ideas like love, or jealousy, or ambition, or betrayal, and find a way to show them using only the images it has on hand.
So, for example, how would a dream show the idea of possessing something? Well, the dream work might do it literally through a kind of visual pun. In German, the verb besitzen means to possess, but it also contains the word for sitting. So a dream might just show someone literally sitting on an object to represent the idea that they want to possess it. It turns an abstract idea into a concrete picture.
All right, let's take a more complex example. How in the world does the dream work show an abstract idea like adultery? It can't just put up a sign that says, adultery.
So here's how it solves the puzzle. The German word for adultery, Ehebruch, literally translates to marriage break or marriage break. The DreamWork hears that word break, and it represents it with a very literal, visual image of a break, like a broken leg, which in German is Beinbruch. It finds this little verbal bridge to create a powerful visual symbol. It's pretty genius, actually.
So the DreamWork has created all these condensed, displaced visual fragments. Now it has to somehow stitch them together into a story. And this is where we run into the truly bizarre, mind-bending rules of dream logic.
And you gotta get ready for this because the logic of our waking world gets completely tossed out the window. In a dream, one single image can mean both itself and its exact opposite at the same time. The word no doesn't even seem to exist. The dream can't show you something is not happening. It can only show it happening. And time? Time and cause and effect are a total mess. The end of the story might be the very first thing you dream. It's wild.
So after all this chaos, one final process kicks in, usually right before you wake up. It's called secondary revision. This is basically your rational mind looking at all these bizarre, jumbled fragments and desperately trying to stitch them into a story that makes at least some kind of sense. It creates a logical-looking cover story that we remember as the dream's plot, but honestly, it's often the most misleading part of the whole thing.
So, after going through all that, this complicated, weird, fascinating machinery, you have to ask, why does any of this actually matter? Well, it's all about learning to decode the unconscious.
Here's the most important point. If the dream work is the process of encoding a secret message, then the whole goal of dream interpretation is to learn how to reverse that process. It's about learning how to crack the code your own mind has created.
And Freud himself put it perfectly. He said, the work of interpretation seeks to undo the dream work. It's all about taking that strange movie you remember, the manifest dream, and carefully tracing it backwards. You work through the fake logic, the visual puns, the emotional misdirection, and the intense compression to finally get back to the raw, latent thoughts that started it all.
And that leaves us with one last big question. By understanding the strange and beautiful machinery that builds our dreams, we get a whole new set of tools to look at our own inner worlds. So the next time you wake up from some crazy dream, maybe you'll ask yourself, what is my unconscious really trying to tell me?